Welcome to Gen X Amplified episode number 5, where we're going to talk about living life on purpose, mindset, and that dreadful early morning routine. All right. You ready? Let's do it.
The real secret to extraordinary success isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more. And when you focus on becoming more, what you actually find is you get so much better that you actually find that you can start achieving more by doing less.
Welcome to Gen X Amplified, where we bring you inspirational and entertaining conversations with successful Gen X leaders and entrepreneurs.
This is the show created just for you. The powerful generation between the boomers and millennials to help you amplify your story,
Maximize your impact,
and become Gen Exceptional in business and in life.
Now, here's your host, Adrian Porter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Amplified. This is Adrian Porter, and I am so excited today because my guest truly has a story that is a miracle. He is a keynote speaker, author, coach, and host of an awesome podcast called Achieve Your Goals, which is actually one of my favorites. But what's even more incredible is that my guest actually died at age 20. Yes, you heard me right. He was hit head on by a drunk driver, broke 11 bones, had brain damage, and literally died for 6 minutes. He was in a coma for 6 days and then told by doctors that he may never walk again. But now he is a #1 best-selling author of a book called The Miracle Morning, the not so obvious secret guaranteed to transform your life before 8 a.m., which is, by the way, now being regarded as one of the most life-changing books ever written. And he is here on Gen X Amplified to talk about how you too can change any or literally every area of your life just by simply changing the way you wake up in the morning. Everyone, please welcome my Gen Exceptional guest, Hal Elrod. Yo, Pal Hal, what's going on?
Adrian, what's up, buddy? Thanks for having me on, man. This is I'm looking forward to this.
Me too, man. And I am really, again, excited. Part of the reason why I really wanted you here is because you have literally changed my life. And I think I told you about it too when I invited you on the podcast based on your book. And part of the mission on the podcast here is to empower and inspire, Gen Xers to become a stronger leader by defining their unique, powerful story and the strength of their personal brand. And you, my friend, have one of the most personal, powerful stories I've ever heard. So if you can just start off, just tell us about that life-changing event that I talked about earlier, actually almost life-ending event that happened. And then we'll get right into discussing the book, if you don't mind.
Yeah, because I learned in that event you only live twice, so be careful.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was actually my go-to joke in the hospital. But
no, that's fine.
So yeah, it's one of those things you never imagine happening to you. Being hit head on by a drunk driver, that happens to other people. It happens to people that you see on the news, but you never imagine it happening to you. And for me, I don't remember the headlights coming at me. I had actually left that night. I had a speech at a conference. Mm-hmm. I was a top salesperson for this company, and so I was always asked to speak at the events. And that was a real special night because I got a standing ovation at the event and I was really feeling amazing, So talk about going from like being on top of the world to kind of having your world end, in a millisecond. But hit head on by the drunk driver at 70 miles an hour. The worst was actually from not the drunk driver, but my car spun off the drunk driver, kind of spun around sideways. And the car that was behind me crashed into my driver's side door at 70 miles an hour. And for anybody listening right now, to get an idea of what that would be like, put your hands up in front of you like you're holding onto a steering wheel. Mm-hmm. Just imagine you're driving and look over your left shoulder and imagine that, your eyes are wide as you see a car is coming at you at 70 miles an hour and just crashes into the door of your car.
Wow.
And what you might imagine happening is essentially what happened in terms of, the whole left side of the car was crushed in half. I broke 11 bones in an instant. I broke my pelvis in 3 places. My femur it snapped in half. My humerus bone behind the bicep snapped in half. My elbow was crushed. I severed the nerve in my arm, ruptured my lung, punctured my spleen. The bones in my eye socket were destroyed to the point of being rebuilt in titanium.
Okay.
My ear was almost completely severed, and the top of the ceiling came down and it sliced a V in the top of my head. And unable to withstand the pain, I was in a coma right away. And 6 days later, I had a lot of surgeries and all of that. I come out of the coma and I faced this reality from the doctors. They said, number one, you have permanent brain damage. And that was evident as I had, no short-term memory and really no control over what I said. I basically said everything that a 20-year-old young man thought, which, I had a hot nurse, so you can imagine. It was totally inappropriate. But I had it was brain damage. I had no control over what I was saying,
Right.
And then I had no. The doctor said I would never walk again. There they said I would probably, quote, air quotes here, probably never walk again. And that if I did, it would be like a year off. And to keep a long story short, I told my parents, I said, look, I've accepted the worst case scenario. If the doctors are right and I never walk again, I've decided that I'll be the happiest person you've ever seen in a wheelchair. Because if I'm in a wheelchair either way, I have the choice of being miserable that I'm in a wheelchair and feeling like a victim, or I can just be grateful that I am in a wheelchair and that I have everything I have, so I'll be grateful and I'll be happy that, regardless of whether or not I'm in a wheelchair. But I said, Mom and Dad, I don't put my energy into that possibility. That's like I don't want that. So I don't think about it. I don't dwell on it. I don't worry about it. I said, all of my energy is going into walking again. I think about that all the time. I dwell on that possibility that I want. I visualize it. I pray about it. And I don't think it's a coincidence that 2 weeks after I came out of the coma, the doctors are saying you're probably never going to walk again. 2 weeks later, they came in with routine x-rays and they said, we don't know how to explain this, but your body is healing so rapidly that we're going to let you take your first step tomorrow in therapy.
Wow.
It was amazing. It went from, never walk again to maybe like in a year to, 3 weeks after I was in the crash and 2 weeks after I came out of the coma, I took my first step. And it's kind of one of those, the rest is history, as they say. But yeah, that experience, obviously it taught me a lot. I wrote a book around it called Taking Life Head On.
I like the title.
Yeah, very clever. But like 9 years ago, I wrote the first book. And again, I never intended to write any book. My first one, The Miracle Morning, the one that is making the big splash here.
Right.
I never was going to be an author. I wrote the first book because I felt a sense of responsibility because I was so happy and positive in the hospital despite this horrible circumstances and there was a very specific way of thinking that allowed me to be that way. And the doctors actually encouraged me, you should write a book, like share that with other people. So I wrote the first book out of this sense of responsibility from this kind of rock bottom that I had and how I overcame it. And then the second book, The Miracle Morning, it was the exact same thing. It was 2008. The economy crashed. I lost everything. And then within 6 months of this downward spiral into financial ruin and depression, and I was in the worst shape of my life physically, in less than 2 months after coming up with this thing that I now call The Miracle Morning, I more than doubled my income. I went from being in the worst shape of my life physically to doing a 52-mile ultra marathon, and my depression went away literally in 24 hours. And because my life changed so fast, I started calling it my Miracle Morning, and I taught it to a coaching client. And anyway, so long story short, it was, again, after I taught it to enough people and they saw these amazing results in their lives, I was like, I have a responsibility to share this with other people. Like, I have to write a book, but I don't enjoy writing. And so it was like 3 or 4 years after I decided I need to write a book before I actually got over my fears and wrote The Miracle Morning.
Well, I'm actually speechless just from that story. When you were in the hospital, just taking a step back, the way that you explained it, I know you mentioned to your parents that, look, don't worry about me. Yeah. I will be the happiest wheelchair bound person. That mindset, did you always have that positive mindset prior to the accident? Because honestly, for me, I can't really comprehend having that type of mindset considering that situation, but it sounds like that's pretty much who you are, who you were.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. There are a couple things. Number one, if you would have, if I were, if we were in opposite roles and I was listening to somebody tell me they were in this accident and they had that mindset, I probably would go, dude, I would never have that mindset.
Right.
Right. So it's almost like you don't know until you're there,
Okay.
But I mean, if I can pinpoint one single factor to me having that mindset, it's something called the 5-minute rule that I learned in my sales training.
Okay.
And the doctors actually called my parents in one day and they told them they thought I was in denial and that I was delusional because I was so happy. They're like, this isn't normal. Your son's like 20 years old. He's being told he may never walk again, and he's always smiling and like laughing and joking and making us laugh. That's not normal. We believe that he simply can't accept his reality, so he's checked out of it. He's just like, it's so painful, the thought of. So, and what my dad came in and talked to me, and I reminded him, I said, my dad said, Hal, how are you really feeling? Like, I know that your friends are here and you're laughing and joking and reminiscing, but when there's no friends here and when the lights are out at night and you're thinking about, your future and the unknown, not knowing if you're going to walk again. This conversation happened before I ever took my first step. And he said, how are you really feeling? And I said, and I could tell my dad, his eyes were like red and welled up and he was, trying not to cry. And I was like, I really thought about it. I thought, am I sad? Am I depressed? Am I angry that this happened? Am I scared? Mm-hmm. And I looked at him, I said, Dad, I thought you knew me better than that. Remember I lived by the 5-minute rule? And he kind of looked at me funny and I said, yeah, remember it's okay to be negative when things go wrong, but not for more than 5 minutes.
Wow.
And I said, Dad, it's been 2 weeks. I'm past my 5 minutes. And to explain what that rule, like the element of that, or I should say the premise of that,
yes, please,
is that, and I learned this in my sales training. So obviously the adversity it was designed to prepare us for was much smaller. It was like, like a rude customer, like a canceled order, right? But the principle is the same. And here's the idea. And this is really profound. I hope everybody will listen. I'm not saying that I'm profound, but the concept is that every negative emotion that we've ever felt in our lives, this goes for every single person on the planet, every negative emotion that we've ever felt is self-created. And it's for most of us, it's unconsciously. We don't know we're creating it. We're not even aware that we're creating it or how or why we're creating it. But it's created by our resistance to our reality or to reality. In other words, resisting reality looks like this. It's our wishing and wanting that something were different. That is out of our control. Most of the time, it's something that's already happened. So think about anytime you're angry, sad, depressed, upset, like 99% of the time, it's over something that already happened.
Right.
Like it already happened. So you can't change it, but it's the degree that you're resisting it, going, gosh, damn it, I didn't want that to happen. Or like, oh my gosh, that meant like I lost that person that I love, But it's like, and we think that it's the thing that we're focusing on that's causing us to feel angry or sad or depressed or whatever the negative emotion is. But what I learned is it's not the thing. It's the resistance. It's the non-acceptance of the thing. And the moment that we go, you know what? I can't change it. I wouldn't have asked to be in this horrible car accident, but since I can't change it, I'm not going to put any energy into wishing that I could. And when you do that, it doesn't mean that you're happy about the thing, like, oh, now I'm fired up that I was in a car accident and might not walk again. But it's much more powerful than that. Instead of being happy or sad, which are really emotions that are fleeting, you can be happy 1 minute, a phone call changes that, right?
Right.
But when you live with acceptance, where you accept all things that are out of your control, and it starts out being a conscious decision that you make where you go, okay, wait a minute, I'm upset right now, but I can't change it. So I'm going to give myself 5 minutes to be upset about it. And then after 5 minutes, I will take a deep breath. I'll say, can't change it. And I will consciously, actively accept it. And again, here's what I'm saying. It doesn't mean you're happy, but more powerful than that, it means you're at peace with it. And that's the thing. When you're at peace with something, when you learn to live a life of acceptance of all the things that are out of your control, you live a life of unwavering, unconditional peace. And so I might not be happy that someone passed away that I love, but I also don't have to be distraught over it. I can be at peace with it because that person's gone. So I can either be depressed and sad and angry and suicidal and whatever, or I can be at peace. And that only comes through acceptance. And so that's the greatest lesson I learned. And it allows you to be kind of emotionally invincible, if you will, as you go through life. And it could be anything from it doesn't have to be, just so I want to be really clear. This isn't just for like traumatic events. This is traffic. This is right. Like if you're in, most people hate traffic. And think about how silly that is. Okay. All right, Adrian, I'm going to change your life, dude, with this one thing.
And Hal, I live in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm not sure if you've ever been here on 285 or the interstate, but traffic's
crazy.
Is horrible.
So let me ask you a question. When you're in traffic, can you change that there's traffic?
No, I cannot.
So is there any value in wishing that you could, or being upset or frustrated or whatever the emotion that you feel in traffic, that negative emotion is, right? There's no value in that. And when you become aware of that, you go, you know what? Since I can't change traffic, I'm going to leave early so I'm not stressed out that I'm going to be late, right? But B, like for me, when I get into traffic, I've created this like default anchor for gratitude. I'm like, hey, I'm in the car. I'm stuck. I need to be somewhere in 15 minutes. At this rate, it probably doesn't take me a half an hour. I can just spend the half an hour upset that I'm in traffic, or I can be the happiest, most grateful I've been all year. I mean, whatever I want, Right. And so that's when you accept the things you can't change and you're at peace. Now you create space to experience whatever you want. Maybe you just want to, you know what? I'm in traffic, whatever. You turn up the radio. You're like, dude, this is great. I always joke like the odds of getting in a head-on collision when you're going 5 miles an hour are not very good. So it's actually just one of many benefits to being in traffic.
Well, there's so many nuggets there, and I think your mindset, and you mentioned gratitude, is so important, and that really leads us into what the meat of what I also want to get into is this book that everyone's talking about. The Miracle Morning. I mean, that's really been your recent claim to fame. And as I mentioned, the Miracle Morning for me personally has been a game changer. And I think I first heard about it and you on Pat Flynn's podcast. And then when you were on his podcast talking about the Miracle Morning. And the reason that it struck me, because honestly, all of my life, everyone that knows me knows or knew that I was a night owl. I'm talking midnight, 1 o'clock. I mean, burning the midnight oil. I hated the mornings. I kept telling myself I am not a morning person. Then I heard about you in this book, and I listened to the podcast, and then I heard you on Chris Ducker's podcast. And then then I started reading the book, and I said, okay, I'm going to give this a try. And it literally changed my life. And I even wrote a blog post about it not too long ago about how I became a morning person, where I credited you along with the 5-Minute Journal, but really your book really catapulted me and transitioned me from being a night owl. So let's really dig into the details of the book, the premise, and the inspiration behind the book.
Sure, absolutely. As I mentioned, the Miracle Morning, the way that it happened was when the economy crashed in 2008, I went from being relatively successful by most accounts. I had I was earning just under 6 figures, and I was an entrepreneur. I'd started my own business, so I had total freedom, right? I was doing coaching. I had a success coaching business, one-on-one coaching. I had written my first book, Taking Life Head On, and I had launched a speaking career. So those things were all moving forward. They were growing, getting better. And when the economy crashed, oh, by the way, I'd also bought my first house. I had bought a brand new house, and I had bought my dream car. And when the economy crashed, I mean, it was really like a 6-month downward spiral, but it felt like it happened really fast. And I lost over half of my income, couldn't pay the bills, all those things, lost my house. And what happened with that conversation with John, and I went home and I realized I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, and he said, Hal, 2 things you need to do every day. And I was like, I called him because he's a smart business mind, and I was wanting business advice. Like, dude, tell me, like, I need to make a website and optimize it for the search engines. And, that's what I was thinking. Right. And he goes, are you exercising every day? I said, dude, no, I canceled my gym membership 6 months ago, man. I'm in the worst shape of my life. He said, okay. He said, are you reading books every day? I said, no, man, I wake up, I hit the snooze button a few times, I go into my office, and I just grind out until the evening until I'm exhausted and I can't think straight, right? And kind of like the typical entrepreneur, way of life. And he said, Hal, he goes, here's the thing, man. He goes, you're a smart guy, but if you're not putting yourself in a peak physical, mental, and emotional state every day and then stimulating yourself intellectually with new knowledge, you're not going to turn anything around. You're going to stay stuck. I said, okay. He said, if I were you, he said, you need to go for a run every day. I would do it in the morning, start the day with getting your heart rate up, the oxygen, the blood flowing to your brain. You'll think clearer, you'll feel better, you'll make better decisions, etc. And he said, and while you're on the run, to kill two birds with one stone, bring an audiobook, right? Listen to an audiobook on your iPod or whatever, and learn while you're in that peak physical, mental, and emotional state, you learn something new to take back and apply to your business, right? And he said, and if you don't want to listen to audiobooks, just schedule the time to run for 10 minutes and then go read for 10 minutes or whatever. And at first I resisted because I said, first thing I said, I go, John, dude, I hate running, man. Is there something else I could do? And he said, without skipping a beat, what do you hate worse, running or your circumstances of your life that you just described to me? And I was like, all right, screw you. Okay, I'll go for a run. I get it. All right. And but so I go for the run the first day, the next morning, and it was like begrudgingly like, oh my God, I hate running. I want business advice. I don't need to run. Right. And 2 minutes into the run, I heard a quote, which I'll share with you and your audience right now, that changed my entire life. I mean, this quote is the catalyst for turning my life around in those 2 months.
Okay.
The quote is the catalyst for the miracle morning. And I mean, the underlying philosophy of the miracle morning, again, it's rooted in this quote, and it's from Jim Rohn. And he said, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development, because success is something you attract by the person you become.
Oh, I love that.
And in that moment, I realized I'm not dedicating time every day to my personal development. Therefore, I'm not becoming the person that I need to be to create the success I want in my life. And here's how I like to quantify it. So for people listening, I think this helps me get it. So maybe it'll help you too. Mm-hmm. And I'll ask you this question. So Adrian, if we're measuring our success in our lives, and not just like professional success, but I mean our level of success in our relationships, in our fitness, our health, our energy, our happiness, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being as good as we can imagine, 1 being horrible, what level of success do we want in every single area?
I personally would say 10.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's nobody's like, I don't want to be too rich. I don't want like my friends borrowing money all the time. I'll take like level 6. No, we all want level 10 success.
Exactly.
And my epiphany was most people in America, and I mean really around the world, that's the disconnect, is we want level 10, but we're not a level 10 person, right?
Right.
Our level of personal development, which I define really as who you are as a person, it's your knowledge, your skill, your beliefs, your habits, your mental, emotional, physical vitality, all of that. If it's at a level 2 or 3 in any given area, that's where the success you're going to experience in your life and in your outer world is. And for me at that time, like my mindset was at like a 2. Like I was depressed. I was financially, I was failing. I was in debt. I was losing my house. I was a mess, right? Mm-hmm. Hadn't exercised in 6 months. Physically, I was at like a 2 or 3. I was at the bottom. And my knowledge, I wasn't reading every day. I wasn't learning. And so the epiphany that I had was I'm going to go home. I think I just wanted to cut my run short, to be honest with you. But I ran home, and my idea was, my theory was, I'm going to spend an hour online. I'm going to research what are the best personal development practices in the world. What are the world's most successful people do every day? And I'm going to find like the top 1 or 2 of those practices and start doing it every single day. And I ran home. I spent an hour online on Google doing my G search, right? Google research. And I basically, at the end of that hour, I had a list of 6 practices. And at first I was a little bit discouraged because I'm like, I've heard of these before. Mm-hmm. But I mean, dude, like what works, what works, right? If you're an NBA player, you shoot jump shots, even though you've done it a million times. You keep doing it to always get better.
Yes.
So for me, at first I was a little discouraged, and I went, wait a minute, all right, who am I to judge? This is what the world's most successful people do every day. Then my search was, okay, which 1 or 2 of these is the best one? Like I want fast results. So I don't want to mess around with, I don't want just any of these. I want to pick the best one, maybe the best 2. And as I kept diving into the research, none proved to be better than the other. It just depended on who you asked, right? If you ask Ray Dalio, who is a billionaire, runs the largest hedge fund in the world, he says meditation is the number 1 key to his financial success. Mm-hmm. And not his spiritual success, his financial success. So I'm reading that, and then I'm watching an interview with Will Smith on the Ellen Show, and he's talking about affirmations and how his self-talk is the key to him being one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood. I'm going, well, nah, depending on who you read, they swear by this one.
Right.
So then the big breakthrough came when I went, dude, what if I did all of these? None of the research I've done shows anyone that does all of these. What if I did all 6 of these practices? And in fact, recently, Robert Kiyosaki interviewed me on Rich Dad Radio.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know if you heard about that. Yeah, I was in awe. Number 1, I was stoked when he booked me on a show.
Right.
But then he told me that he's read The Miracle Morning 3 times. He was on day 60, and it's changed his entire life.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm still, this was just a few weeks ago, so I'm still kind of like emotionally off
congratulations. That's exciting.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I was like, dude, if it could change Robert Kiyosaki's life, I don't think there's anyone that's too successful, So, but what he said the lifesavers, these 6 practices that make up the Miracle Morning, and I'll run through the SAVERS acronym very quickly. The S is for silence, the first S.
Okay.
The A is for affirmations. And in the book, I should say, this is to clarify, most people have tried some of these practices, like affirmations is a good example, and they just haven't, it's never worked for them. And the reason is affirmations have been taught for decades in one of two ways, both of which aren't very effective. Number one is to essentially lie to yourself. If you want to, you basically articulate what do you want to be, and then you say that over and over and over until the theory is you trick yourself into believing it, right?
Right.
You go, I am a millionaire. I am a millionaire. And it's like, if you're a smart person, you're constantly, your subconscious is fighting with that because it's not true.
Right.
And the truth will always prevail. The other problem with affirmations, the way they've been taught, is they teach you, they use passive language. So for example, this affirmation, I'll paraphrase it, but it's been perpetuated for forever, as far as I know. Money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance. Right? Some variation of that. And it's like, what the hell does that even mean? So the problem is the passive language they teach you to use affirmations. Either lie to yourself or use this passive language that tricks you into feeling good in the moment, but doesn't generate results. I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody except for those few lottery winners that money just flowed to them effortlessly. Like, you actually have to do something and add value to the world to be compensated financially, right? That's typically how it works.
Right.
So the way I teach affirmations in the book are designed to be in alignment with your goals and the actions you need to take when you will commit to taking those actions. So they don't just create this like feeling of like, yeah, I'm a millionaire because money flows to me effortlessly. It's like, I want to become a millionaire because blank, blank, and blank. Here's the reasons that are going to remind me why I'm so committed to this goal. And here are the specific actions I've got to take today to ensure that I'm on track to become a millionaire, right? That's the way I teach affirmations. And every other element of the savers in the book, it's all very specific and very actionable. The V in savers is for visualization. The E is for exercise. Okay. And I'm not saying that you replace your afternoon workout. I'm saying that you start, like Robert Kiyosaki said that he does the savers every day now. And the E for exercise is only 3 minutes. He just does some, like, I forgot what it was, stretching and jumping jacks, something where he just gets his heart rate up, gets the blood flowing. He feels better. He thinks clearer, right? Right. The R in savers is for reading. And, I'm talking about not like 50 Shades of Grey or Harry Potter, but self-help books, right? Personal development books. And then the final S is for scribing. Okay. And scribing is a fancy word for writing. You mentioned 5-minute journal. That's my favorite form of, scribing. So, again, you can find some of the world's most successful people that swear by any one of those. And what made the Miracle Morning so special is I woke up the next day, I did all 6 of them. And less than 2 months later, as I mentioned, I more than doubled the income. I went from being in the worst shape of my life to committing to a 52-mile ultra marathon. And here's why. I hated running. I still hate running. So I thought, what if I use the Miracle Morning in my affirmations, my visualization, and my morning exercise? What if I center that around doing something that scares the crap out of me and I hate doing, to the point of where to actually go from never running more than a mile to running 52 in a day, who I'd have to become in order for that to happen would be astounding. And that's why I committed to do it. And then last but not least, like I said, the depression went away on day one because I woke up and I felt so, at the end of that Miracle Morning, I felt so empowered, so inspired, so encouraged. So, I gained new knowledge. I woke up and I became a level 10 person by the end of the first day. And I started to see that was the thing that was going to change my entire life, and it did. And that's why I started calling it the Miracle Morning.
So, wow. So what would you say to that, just like for playing devil's advocates, that person who is a night owl and they say, I'm as productive at night as I could be in the morning, but the mornings aren't just for me. What would you say to that person?
Two things I would say. Number one, in the book, I talk a lot about that. The people that say I'm not a morning person, because that used to be me. How that's just a limiting belief. It's a false identity that we create for ourselves. It's like saying I'm not a runner. Well, if you don't run, you're not a runner. Like I wasn't a runner, and I still hate running. But when I started running every day, I became a runner. Right. So probably the most important chapter in the Miracle Morning book is for people that are not morning people, because that's the majority of the people that do the Miracle Morning. When they read it, they're like, I don't know if this will work for me. I'm not a morning person. And then all of a sudden, like you and Pat Flynn. Pat Flynn's a great example. Pat Flynn started our interview by saying I'm not a morning person.
Right.
I don't. And he goes, I've had your book for 6 months, Hal. You sent it to me 6 months ago. I haven't even read it. I don't have any desire to read it. You know.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the end of the interview, he's like, I'll give it a try. I commit to my listeners. I'm going to read it. And within a few weeks later, he wrote an article, a blog, said the 4 books that changed my life this year. And that was one of them. And now he is a morning person. And he said it. And this is a guy who was already had an amazing life. He's a great family man.
Right.
He's a marathon runner. He earns right around 7 figures a year. I mean, he's very successful. And that's what he told me. Is he's like, I'm a night owl, and it works for me.
Yeah.
But he said when he implemented the Miracle Morning and switched it, he said I think he said it. I don't know if he said it. Oh well, I know at least he said it doubled his productivity. I think it was more than that, but he at least said it doubled his productivity, which this is a very productive person. So I would say read the book. You have nothing to lose. And there are tens of thousands of people that never, ever in their lives consider themselves a morning person that now swear by the Miracle Morning, you being one of them, Pat Flynn being one of them, et cetera.
Yeah, everyone, audience, I can attest. I was never a morning person, but how this book really... It lays the blueprint. I mean, it really shows you how to do it. And I can honestly say as well, I'm more productive. I feel better, especially being a husband and a father. I make more time out of my day. And speaking of that, Hal, if specifically for Gen Xers, like what would you say, why is the Miracle Morning a must read for that 35 to 50-year-old who is either they're a 9-to-5er, they're looking to have more of a successful career on their job, or they're an entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneur, but they want to really define their sense of purpose, be more productive, and create that extraordinary life for them and their family. Why is the Miracle Morning a must read for them?
So, I mean, that's what the Miracle Morning is all about. The premise of the Miracle Morning is focused on who you're becoming, right? Going back to that Jim Rohn quote, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development because it's determined by who you become. And so in our society, the focus is typically on doing, right? You want more, do more.
Right.
And what I've found is that the real secret to extraordinary success isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more. And when you focus on becoming more, what you actually find is you get so much better at like just who you are and how you think and how you approach things that you actually find that you can start achieving more by doing less.
Got it. Yeah.
And that's the thing. The average person is just overwhelmed with all the stuff they have to do. The people that are really successful, typically they figure out, dude, I just got to become more, and then I can actually do less and achieve more. And that really is it. Most people I know that are either millionaires or on their journey, it's like they don't work 80 hours a week like the person that's making 60 grand a year trying to get to $1 million. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's it. So shift the focus from doing more to becoming more, and you start to see that your outer world really does reflect your inner world quicker than you might imagine possible.
Value bombs from Hal Elrod. All right. So as we wrap up here, we like to end the podcast with a little fun. So a couple of questions. As I'm a music junkie, and we all know that music is such a great storytelling medium. So if there was one song, Hal, that would play every time you enter the room or when you walk down the street that perfectly fits the story of you and your brand, what would that song be? Basically, what would be your own personal theme song?
Well, I don't know. I guess you may not know this, but so it's called The Miracle Morning, and it's a rap song. It's a rap song on iTunes that I did the second verse for.
Get out of here.
And dude, anybody listening, it's the best $1.29 you'll spend all day. So I mean, all the lyrics. If you want to wake up to your full potential, the Miracle Morning is so essential. So it's all about like it's the essence. I mean, it literally is my brand and my theme song.
So you literally have your own personal theme. So that probably is going to be the best answer on this podcast.
It was a dream. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to write rap like all through junior high and high school. I wrote raps all the time, cool. I met the gentleman named Coach Dills, who's a hip hop artist, and he read my book and he was like, "Dude, I'm so inspired by your book. We should like write a song or I want to do a song about it." And then my wife was like, "Hal, why don't you do the song with him? Wasn't your dream when you were a kid to be a rapper?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Dude, call him back and tell him you want to do the song with him." And I called him and he's like, "Can you rap?" I was like, I mean, that's sorta, and I rapped something real quick and he was like, "That's not bad." And, long story short, a month later we're in the studio and laid down the track. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Okay, cool. All right, iTunes, Miracle Morning song on iTunes, everyone.
Yeah.
And last, Hal, if there was a specific tool or resource, whether it's a mobile app, website, or a book, besides the Miracle Morning, of course, that you recommend, especially for Gen Xers who happen to be leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs, what have you, what resource would that be?
I'd recommend 5 Minute Journal. And for me, I use the app on my phone. You know, you can, if you go to FIVE5minutejournal.com, you can buy the hardcover version. But I mean, it really is like it's the minimal element of effective journaling in terms of every day you start with 3 things you're grateful for, but then you focus on the 3 highest priorities you have for the day. And for me, like that increases my productivity significantly because every day I've got a lot of things on my to-do list. And whenever I get to that part of the journal, I pull out my planner and I go my schedule or my to-do list and I go, okay, I got like 25 things on there. What are the 3 that'll be the biggest game changer? And so that alone, getting clarity on that, which I may or may not do without that prompt from the 5 Minute Journal. So that's my favorite app for Gen Xers, for anybody to be more productive.
Awesome. Now I use the app as well. It's wonderful. That, and along with your book, again, totally changed my life. So Hal, this was great conversation. And again, everyone, if you're out there, if you're looking to just really become more productive and you're struggling and telling yourself you're not a morning person, trust me, give it a try and you won't be surprised. Hal, tell everyone what is the best way to find out more about you, your movement, and how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. I'll give you a few resources.
Okay.
If you want to buy the book, Amazon is definitely the best place to get the book, whether it's, Kindle, audiobook, paperback, you can get that on Amazon. If you're an iBooks reader, you can get it on iBooks. But if anybody is listening and money is tight and you're like, man, I literally am watching every dollar. I've been there before, so I can sympathize. But go to miraclemorning.com, and that's where you can get the first few chapters of the book for free. You can get an audio training for free and a video training for free. So go to miraclemorning.com, and that way you can get started immediately. Also, if you let's say you order the book on Amazon, but you're like, man, I don't want to wait till it gets here. I want to start immediately. Order the book on Amazon, but then go download the the video and the audio and kind of the free stuff. And then last but not least, the Miracle Morning community on Facebook has become the most inspiring, encouraging, supportive online community that I've ever seen.
Wow.
And we have over 16,000 members from around the world, and it grows by about 50 to 100 a day. And but it's not about the quantity, it's the quality of engagement. Like, it's insane. I used to be able to keep up with it. By the end of the day, we have 100. I mean, it's crazy. Every person that posts something, they'll have 30, 40, 50 comments by the, anyway, it's amazing. So if you want a positive online space, go to the Miracle Morning community to connect with like-minded Gen Xers and people of all ages, but, a lot of Gen Xers, which I am myself, that are really just supporting each other in not just the Miracle Morning, but just in being the best, being our best selves and achieving everything that we want.
Yeah, I'm actually going to join that group right after this call, and that is great. And with Facebook now, everyone knows, I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but Facebook, as far as liking pages, that engagement level has kind of gone down, but groups are so powerful. So I can't even imagine the level of engagement with this particular group. So, and you're right, Gen Xers really index high when it comes to Facebook. So that's awesome. Yeah. So Hal, thanks for taking the time, and you provided so many inspirational nuggets and just sharing your story, man, with the Gen X Amplified community.
Hey, Adrian, it's an honor, man. Thank you for having me, and everybody that tuned in. I hope you got some value. I hope to see you in the Miracle Morning community, and thanks so much for taking the time.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Wow, what a great and inspirational conversation, right? Hal Elrod. I mean, were you guys listening into that? I mean, the accident that he was in and being pronounced dead for I forgot how many minutes, but it was longer than I would have liked. But anyway, great book, great guy. I want to thank Hal so much for spending time with us on the podcast and providing all of that great content and inspirational content. I mean, wow, talk about motivation. Please go get his book, The Miracle Morning. It's a great read. And for all you night owls out there, like I used to be, that are resisting getting up early and establishing a morning routine, I tell you, if you read this book, it will change your life. It changed mine. So if you enjoyed our conversation, please go over to genxamplified.com/005 to get all the show notes. and all the links to the resources that we discuss. And please don't forget to go to iTunes and give your rating and review. Tell us how you like the podcast. Please give your honest rating. If there are things that you want us to improve upon, please let me know, because this podcast is for you. And I said this over and over again. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, so you will be updated every time a new episode is made available just for you. And please share, if you do share this podcast or this episode on Twitter, use the hashtag GenXAmplified. I would really appreciate it. And again, thank you for listening in, for tuning in, for spending time with us. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. This podcast is really all about you, to help you become a better leader, a better business owner, a better mom, a better father. I'm stumbling over my words as I think about it. Just being a better person and being Gen exceptional as you are. So until next time, all the best to your success. Take care.